I'm recording today because there's actually a homeschool meetup happening in our community for the first time, honestly, I think since I've moved here 5 years ago. So that's super exciting. My kids are excited to connect with some other homeschoolers. We're going to meet up at a park here. And yeah, that's super cool. That being said, I won't be here live. But I wanted to show up because I said I'm going to be here 3 times a week, 11 o'clock. Christian wife, homeschool mom of 10, almost 11 kids. That's me, Tara. And I just wanted to share with you what's on my heart for this day. And here's a cool story. I planned what I was going to talk about on Wednesday, like last week, kind of, getting ready and making sure I don't wing it. And turns out that today I'm going to talk to you about my son, Bo, and his day of birth and when he came into the world and how it was a really rough landing. It was the first time we ever experienced neonatal intensive care. I'm going to get into that in a second. But at the time that you'll be watching this on Wednesday, it's Bo's birthday. He'll be turning 11 on that day. And considering where he started, and it was pretty scary. If you've seen the photo I'll be sharing, it's been a journey, okay? And I mean, when you get at the beginning, right, when things are rough, you don't know how it's going to turn out. Well, I had never heard of the NICU, it's the neonatal intensive care unit, until I was there with my 5th-born son. And he was born late after my third attempted VBAC. He had inhaled the meconium that I guess he pooped out while he was in the womb. And it's not uncommon, apparently, for little kids to swallow some of that. And it's sterile. There's no harm in swallowing it. They'll just digest it. But he'd inhaled it. So when he came out, normally the baby comes out, they're like, oh, look, it's a boy. And within a few minutes, I'm holding my baby as they stitch me back up because all my kids have been C-sections. And that didn't happen this time. Instead, things got really serious and really quiet. In fact, even before he was born, my doctor, who's normally very relaxed, very pleasant, things had gotten serious because his heart rate was elevated. Something was wrong. I got bumped to the front of the line. I knew this was serious because everybody wasn't just a normal day at the office. In the OR, things were quiet and serious, and that was intense. I was already praying and kind of holding it together as my baby was coming to the world, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. He was breathing too fast because his little lungs, there was stuff in there. He couldn't breathe properly, and they had a lot more people in the room than they normally do during a standard C-section for me. And I'm laying there, they're stitching me up, and I'm not really hearing him cry. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling a lot of emotions right now recounting the story. It was hard. He, within the hour, was intubated. They put a tube down his throat to assist him because he wasn't getting enough oxygen on his own. Eventually I got wheeled into recovery and then into my room, and it was just really quiet because I didn't have my baby with me for the first time ever. And we didn't know. And we didn't know what was going to happen next. We didn't know. And the doctors, being doctors, are honest with you of this really could go one of 2 ways. He's going to get better or he will decline. And he's kind of left it, or he will decline. Whatever that means, right? You're I don't even know what that means. Please, God, let's not go down that road. I never felt that kind of fear before. I've been through stuff. We've all been through stuff. I had not been through anything with one of my children where their health, their life was actually potentially imminently in danger. I didn't know if we were going to leave the hospital preparing a funeral or, relieved and joyful. So when people ask me sometimes wow, Tara, how did you get through that kind of fear, that mom fear that some of us have tasted when our kids have been seriously hurt, hospital level hurt, or in the intensive care, the neonatal intensive care unit? Well, here's the journey, some of the stuff I've picked up along the way. One is sometimes in life, there's just situations that you can't go around. There's just only forward. There's no shortcuts. There's no, let's just wait. I'm going to go forward, and God, I wish there was a shortcut. You could just immediately end this, snap your fingers, God, make a miracle happen. This will just I'll wake up and this bad dream will be over. But this was real life. This was happening. This was the valley of the shadow of death. And the only way through it was forward. So as I'm back in my room, and it's very quiet because I don't have a baby now that I'm holding and starting to nurse and go through all the normal happy stuff I've gone through now so many times. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I wasn't ready to talk to literally anyone other than my husband because I was in shock and scared. So first things first, we just quietly prayed. And it wasn't a long prayer. It wasn't an excited prayer. It was just an honest, the Garden of Gethsemane kind of prayer when Jesus prayed, God, if there's any other way, my Father, if there's any other way than this way, and yet your will be done. And that was so hard because your will be done sometimes mean it's not my will, like it's not going to be okay. It could be like a parent's nightmare. This was 11 years ago. And it's still real. Like, you remember those moments. They're so transformative because it's really real when you got to get raw with God and realize I can't make my kids' heart beat one more time. I can't give them breath. I can't take the meconium out of their lungs. Actually, I don't control their lifespan. As much as I love the idea of living to be a great grandmother and dying peacefully in my sleep, I actually don't have a control over this thing. And that's humbling. It's very humbling. The second thing that helped me, kind of in hindsight, because things are happening so fast when this is your situation, is I was walking by faith and not by sight because I had no bearings. It was very dark, right? I couldn't see 1 minute in front of me right now. So that night, I began to pump milk. In faith, not like a happy faith, just a quiet, holding my breath kind of faith. And saying, well, it's going to get better, it's going to get worse. And God willing, it's going to get better. And I will be ready, so help me God, to give him what he needs when I can hold him, because I hadn't held him yet. And when all the tubes and wires are out of him, I will give him milk. So I will prepare. And I just walked by faith, not by sight. I asked for a pump, and I started pumping to help my milk come in. And I was trusting and walking that out in spite of my feelings, in spite of my overwhelming fear, not knowing what would actually happen, and if this milk would just be flushed down the toilet, given to someone else, or if it would end up in my baby's body. It was pretty intense. And listen, since then I've gone through a lot of other valleys in life, like we all do, and I've had to learn how to process fear so that it doesn't control me and overwhelm me, and then I almost get like stuck in it, or I just continue to replay life out of that place of fear afterwards. So I put together a guide for free on my website. I'll put a link for it below if you want to check it out. It's a Christian Women's Guide to Overcoming Fear. And like, you're hearing me now, right? I've tasted fear. I think we all have. As women, as Christian women, we're not immune from experiencing some really intense stuff that can shape you. It can make you stronger. It also can stick with you and sometimes control your life and almost be like a default mode you don't even realize you have anymore, and can kind of become like self-sabotage. It can be hard to trust again, especially when you've had an experience with NICU or other really close calls, or even just some stuff that ended in absolute tragedy. So if you're feeling like you're being ruled by fear, or, this is just a gentle way that I get alone with God and deal with some fear. Sometimes maybe not in the moment, sometimes afterwards, because you just can't even deal with it while it's happening. But afterwards, it's good to just let God deal with it, right? And get some of that stuff out of your heart so you can be free and move forward with more faith, more confidence, and not be ruled by those moments in life that are so intense, or those relationships that were so shaping. That being said, Bo did pull through. My little Boaz Arrow Hills, we call him Bo for short. He spent a full week in the NICU on antibiotics. And after about 24, 36 hours, he was finally able to get the tube out. And once the tube was out of his throat and he was breathing okay on his own, I could hold him for the first time. And I go, my husband wheelchaired me there, and because I'm still recovering from a C-section. And I just remember holding him and just crying with relief. Like, I was like, they're like, he's going to be okay. And I was like, oh, thank God, right? Right? It's what every parent wants to hear. Like, okay, that was rough. That was scary, but it's going to be okay, however long it takes. And there's a whole other story what happened after that week, because I thought I was going to have to leave. Like, after 3 days here in Ontario, you only get so much of a free train, or at least a taxpayer train in the hospital. But that's another story for another day of how I ended up speaking with the hospital. And it cost me, but I was able to nurse him all week at a price. A little teaser for later. I had gained a perspective on parents who've walked through NICU. And it's one of those like bonding things when you connect with another mom, maybe that's you, who you've had a child in intensive care, especially neonatal intensive care. Like, as soon as you know that someone else has been through it, you just have this bond, this connection, this sympathy and empathy for each other. It was a hard week. God brought us to it, brought us through it. And it's helped me to trust him more deeply for some of the other valleys and the tough stuff that we've gone through since then, and probably will go through still, right? Because Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble, but behold, I have overcome the world. And he gives us a comfort that is beyond understanding in the moment and not 1 second sooner. So I hope this has been a blessing to you today. Feel free to check out that guide. It's there to be a blessing to you. I will see you again on Friday. Take care.